Paula A. Plaben, and we are now on the other part of our episode, Myth Talks. Today, we are going to talk about Chinese mythology. This branch of mythology has been the richest sources of Chinese artists and writers to draw over centuries. Some of this culture is not new to us, especially here in Asia, as Chinese culture and tradition has been widespread and known. The specific story that we are going to talk about is the Eight Immortals, or the Ba Shan. Also called as Eight Immortals are a group of legendary heroes of ancient times who fight for justice and vanquish evil. According to Chinese mythology, popular during Tang and Shang dynasty, the Eight Immortals are said to live on a group of 5 islands in the Bohai Sea. Although have been always important part of Chinese oral literature or mythology, these stories were first recorded by Ming Dynasty poet Wu Yuantai. This eclectic group of 8 immortals has significant impact to Chinese culture. They are seen as role models who should be aspired to, whose incredibly exploit should be imitated. Yet, although today they are seen as a unified group, prior to the Ming Dynasty, these immortals were worshipped separately within the Chinese religion of Taoism, having a little no connection to each other. This made Taoism more relatable to the general populace, as they have distinct and unique feature has made them where deities are more relatable. Unlike before, the old Taoism, where deities are reflected as bureaucrats. But the 8 immortals has a unique features and made them more appealing to the broader audience in a goal to reflect all of the sector of Chinese society, so that every person in China would have an immortal relatable to them, representing male, female, the old, the young, rich, the noble, and the poor, and also the humble Chinese people. The immortals are comprised by Cao Guochu, Han Shangzi, He Shangu, Lan Kai-he, Li Teiguai, Du Dongbin, Zhang Gaolai, Zhong Li Chuan. He Shangu is the only woman of the group. Each of Ba Shan have their own special object from which they draw their powers, and this group is considered to especially important figures in Taoism. So here are the major deities and characters in 8 Immortals. First on the list we have Li Teiguai. It is easy to spot Li Teiguai in art. He is one with the cane and gourd. Although he was one of more well-known members of Ba Shan, Li Teiguai has a short temper and was. Therefore, he is one of most disliked. Before he became an immortal, Li was a handsome man who took up Taoist studies under the guidance of Lao Shi, the founder of Taoism, who taught him to leave his physical body and travel to heaven. One of these trips, Li Teiguai lost track of time and left his body for 6 days. His wife, thinking that he was dead, cremated his body and buried the ashes. Li Teiguai was then forced to inhabit the body of a dying homeless man. Li Teiguai carried medicine in his gourd and could cure any illness and give it to those who need it the most. He was seen as a champion of needy and ill. Zhong Li Quan. In artwork, Zhong Li Quan is one shown with robes that reveal his bare belly and has a long beard that reaches his navel. Considered to be one of the oldest in Ba Shan, when Zhong Li Quan was born, he emerged from his mother's body in a shower of blinding lights and ability to speak. He served as a prominent general of Han Dynasty. His military exploits took him to Tibet, where he learned Taoist teaching and devoted himself to meditation. During a meditation session, he materialized into a cloud gold dust and ascended to heaven. Zhongli Quan carried a large fan that has ability to revive the dead and materialize gold and silver out of thin air. Zhang Go Lao. Usually shown riding in his white mule, Zhang Go Lao often carries bamboo fish drum mallets and a pitch of immortality. Zhang Go Lao said to have a real-life occult alchemist who dabbled in necromancy. During his life, Zhang Go Lao was something of an eccentric and was known to drink water from petals of poisonous flowers, snatch birds out of the sky with his bare hands, and enjoy traveling at least 1,000 miles a day on the back of his trusty white mule. One day when he was visiting a temple, Zhang Go Lao suddenly died and his body underwent rapid decomposition. But a few days later, he was seen alive and on nearby mountain. After a few years of Taoist study, Zhang Go Lao suddenly fell ill. Despite his wide knowledge of necromancy, he actually died this time, and his body was found in Zhongchao Mountains. His disciples buried his body, but when they came back few days later to pay their respects, they discovered his corpse has disappeared. It believed that after his final death, Zhang Go Lao physically ascended to heaven. Lu Dongbin, traditionally depicted dressed in scholar's robe. Lu Dongbin typically holds a large sword. One of the most popular figures in Bashan, Lu Dongbin was considered as the leader of 8 immortals. He was once a beloved Tang Dynasty poet who was immortalized as a member of Bashan after his death. Before he became an immortal, Lu Dongbin's name was Lu Yan, and underwent 10 trials to prove to Zhongli Quan that he was worthy enough to become his disciple. He was also associated with the culturally significant story of the Yellow Millet Dream. In this legend, Lu Dongbin fell asleep on the stove while cooking a pot of millet. In his dream, he worked his way up to lofty position in the Chinese government, married and got fired, and divorced over the course of 18 years. When he was woke up, he was left feeling confused and empty. The dream was given by Zhongli Quan to help him realize the meaningless and material achievements in life. Lu Dongbin was very romantic, sexual deity, but was prone to bouts of drunkenness. He Shanggu. It is easy to spot He Shanggu in artwork because she is only woman in Bashan. She carries a lotus flower or a reed pipe instrument called sheng. Born in exactly with 6 hairs on her head, it was obvious that there was something special about He Shanggu since birth. At age of 13, a vision came to her in a dream that told her to gradually decrease her food intake and to begin eating powdered mica every day, so she could avoid death. She headed to divine message and actually ascended to heaven. Her lotus flower was believed to have an ability to improve physical and mental health. Lan Kai He, often painted with a basket of fruit. Lan Kai He was described as an intersex person, or a man who believes that he was meant to be a woman. One day after getting drunk, Lan left the mortal world by riding to heaven on the back of a crane. Han Shangzi. Usually depicted holding or playing a flute, Han Shangzi is a musical prodigy. Han Shangzi was thought to have been the grandnephew of prominent politician and poet Han Yu. Han Yu enrolled Han Shangzi in a Confucian school to better prepare him to become an official, but Han Shangzi has no interest in his study. So Han Yu enrolled his grandnephew in a Buddhist school instead. But Han Shangzi was not interested in his teacher's lesson. One day, Han Shangzi picked a blooming peony and showed his grand uncle and had developed the ability to change the color of flowers. Realizing that he had been gifted with special abilities by heaven, Han Shangzi then decided to return to his home village where he met Lu Dongbin and Zhong Liquan, who taught him about Taoism against his grand-uncle's wishes. Han Shangzi was considered to be musically gifted and carried around a magical flute. Cao Guochu. In paintings and illustrations, Cao Guochu was seen holding a jade tablet. He was once an official who served in an imperial court. His younger brother, Cao Chengzi, was also a court official, but abused his position and was known for being a gambler and a corrupt official. Cao Guochu tried to make up for his brother's grievances and used his own money to pay off his gambling debts. Yet, his younger brother was eventually formally charged with corruption of power. Cao Guochu was so embarrassed that he gave up his political career and retired to the countryside to study Taoism and eventually achieve immortality. He is considered to the patron saint of acting and theater. These two stories about their adventures together are told in wide variation and sometimes combined. In one story, the 8 immortals cross the sea, Pa Shen Go Hai. The 8 immortals have been making rather too merry and their minds clouded by wine. They decided to journey forth to discover all of the wonders of undersea realms that are not found at home in heaven. Werner summarizes this cycle of tales as follows. The usual mode in celestial locomotion by taking a seat on a cloud was discarded at the suggestion of Lo Yan, or known as Lu Dongbin, who recommended that they should show their infinite variety of their talents by placing things on the surface of sea and stepping on them. Li Taiguai threw down his crutch and scudded rapidly over the waves. Zhong Liquan used his feather fan, Zhang Lao his paper mule, Lu Dongbin his sword, Han Shangzi his flower basket, He Shanggu her lotus flower, Lan Chai He his musical instrument, and Cao Guochu his tablet of admission to court. The popular pictures often represent most of these objects as articles changed into various kinds of sea monsters. The musical instrument was noticed by son of Dragon King of the Eastern Sea. The avaricious prince conceived the idea of stealing the instrument and imprisoning the owner. The immortals thereupon declared war, and the details in which are described at length by the Chinese writers. The outcome being that the Dragon King was utterly defeated. After this, the 8 immortals continued their submarine exploits for an indefinite time, encountering numberless adventures. In other variants of tale, the conflict with the Dragon King begins with Lan Kai He carelessly drops his basket of flour, or a pair of theatrical clappers, into the sea. As it sinks, this equipment is appropriated by 2 sons or grandsons of the Dragon King, named Mo Ang and Mo Run, who haughtily refused to return it. In ensuing melee, the 2 were killed. precipitating in all-out war in which, of course, the Immortals were the final victors, and even the Dragon King himself is killed and must be succeeded by his sole remaining son named Agwang. Mythical creature. One of the mythical creature that we have talked about in the 8 Immortals cross the sea is the Dragon King. So how important the dragon or this creature in Chinese and Taoist religion? The dragon is a symbol of evil in both chivalric and Christian traditions, but in Orient it symbolizes supernatural power, wisdom, strength, and hidden knowledge. In most traditions, in this embodiment of chaos and untamed nature. Dragons in Chinese culture symbolize great power, good luck, and strength. They represent power and authority, particularly control over typhoons, water, rainfall, and floods. Emperors were assumed to have ascended from the dragons. Religion. For the present purposes in Taoist, I have concentrated the stories of individuals of Immortals and their efforts as a Taoist to learn the way or the Tao. Each of 8 has a page where I have tried to link most of the common versions of their stories or tales together in more less coherent narrative, but a number of Chinese terms are found in the stories about an individual gradual initiation into realms of Immortals. Some of them have been used by religious sects throughout the ages in the stages names of initiation. They are Chu Dao, to beg the way. It is to express a serious but initial interest in Taoist learning, or sometimes to ask to become a student of an established Taoist master, or they call Lao Shi. Shu Dao, to practice the way. It is to engage in religious exercises ranging from meditation to chanting to alchemy. Shou Lan, to practice religious austerities, to engage in alchemy. Shi Dao, to attain the way, to succeed in one's mastery of the wisdom, to extent of becoming a true master and perhaps become immortal. The last terms rarely occurs, but in the middle two are very common as they are virtually interchangeable. Thus, despite of their folkloric quality, they are potentially models for imitation, and it seems probable that people interested in religious life, or perhaps simply people who feel alienated, may have seen them as role model in secular life seems overwhelming. That they are rarely, if ever shown, engaged in farming or crafts or other workday activities might seem or perhaps make them even more attractive as role models of life disengaged from humdrum and the frustration of normal daily life. In addition, the life of 8 Immortals has commonly used in idioms, especially in some events or happenings in life. For example, the phrase, also known as Go Yao Ludong Bin, which translates to the dog bites Ludong Bin. This refers to a story where a pious Ludong Bin is bitten viciously by a dog. This idiom is used in situations where the kindness of one individual is not recognized nor respected by another and is repaid by hostility. Another idiom is Ba Shen Gao Hai. This translates to 8 Immortals cross the sea, that refers to the story where the 8 Immortals crossed the sea using each own respective talents. To do so, this phrase is used to describe situations where the unique talents of each individual member of a group must be brought into play to ensure the completion of a task. Finally, the ranks of the immortals in Chinese folklore are not limited to these 8. And some extent, inclusion of this 8 doesn't even go only to most accomplished, but some stories or additional immortals can be found also in Chinese tales.